Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacconiana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to clear the flint tube in this Ronson Adonis automatic petrol lighter. Been through this before with many different lighters, but had not had the opportunity to actually make a video where we repair the sparking mechanism on the Ronson Adonis. So that is what we will be doing today. As you can see, the flint spring reaches up in there. We can mark that and get an idea and see that it's coming up short. Something else we can do with the Ronson Adonis, because it has a straight flint tube, is you can just stick a rod or a drill up it. So we could just go at this one from the bottom, which is something that in the past I would have done just to get it sparking faster, but it's easy enough to confusing myself with something I already had sitting there. It's easy enough to disassemble the mechanism and clean it all from the top, and then we're not left with small particles gumming up the works. So we will go ahead and remove the fulcrum cap. I'm going to go ahead and drop all this down into alcohol. I don't know how dirty the mechanism is, if it's really necessary. Hold your thumb over the mechanism. You've already removed the flint spring screw, which wasn't any danger to you anyway because it's obstructed here with flint. But now we're going to, with our thumb holding that all in place, go ahead and pull the fulcrum screw out. And then that should let everything come up. Try not to let your snuffer mechanism come apart completely until you get a look at it. We want to clean that up a little bit. As you can see, there's some flint debris on the file wheel. Not sure why this is so snugly in there, unless it's just the rust. See the typical clutch spring position. So we'll go ahead and get that all in there and get the dust knocked off of it. Now to look at our flint tube from the top, you can see the obstruction. So I'm going to go ahead and take the small drill bit, which is the 1/16 inch, and I'm going to go ahead and spin that by hand. And I see people all the time who say never use a power drill on a lighter, and I understand the sentiment. I also understand that we've got a straight flint spring or flint tube here. So this one seems pretty pretty in place, but I'll go ahead and give it a shot here with the bigger bit. See if we might be able to lodge it free by hand. And if not, then I will put it in the chuck of the drill and go about it that way. You can see that's not really budging, whereas it was dropping dust from the bottom. So I think I'll go ahead and put the bit in the drill and we'll just try to knock it out from the bottom. Easy enough. I did get somebody the other day complaining on one of the videos where I drill out a curved flint tube, which the Adonis is not, so there's relatively little danger there, especially coming from the bottom. Let me get something to clean this up with while I'm explaining the rest of that. I'm going to go blow this out real quick and get some toothpicks. Looks like the one thing I forgot to grab. So I had a viewer that was mad at me the other day because they had punched through drilling a curved tube. They said they wished I'd have warned them about it earlier in the video. I do apologize if any oversight like that takes place, but you got to understand I'm working on the fly here myself a lot of times. When I video these, it may be the first time I've done it, it may not. But any way around it, if you're drilling a curved tube, you definitely want to be careful. You're not just going to try to punch that through. But with a straight tube like the Adonis has, as I was saying a while ago when I did it, it's not as much danger. Usually you can just punch it out of there, no problem. But as always, I'm on the side of those who say it's better to drill it out by hand, and I try that way. But I'm not going to sit here and waste my whole day if I could just punch it out with a drill. So you can see that is clean. The 1954 lighter repair manual talks about the assembly of this, but doesn't really talk about disassembling it. So we may see it also in the instructions for the repair of the Adonis says that this segment will normally be able to be left in place. So maybe we will get to that later. Knocking out that pin, but I have never had the need when repairing one of these to replace this segment. Never had one that was worn out or where the spring was broke or anything. So back to cleaning off these parts, and really I'm just they didn't look like they were all that dirty. These toothpicks that have the curved end pointed on one end and a barrel end on the other, they're really good to help clean the grime out of these old lighter parts. In conjunction with a common household disinfectant wipe, so we're going to go ahead and get all these pieces cleaned off here and laid out here, and then I'll be back here in a moment to get it all reassembled. You can see here, even after soaking that, there's still flint debris in the wheel. So we can go ahead and clean that out as best we can. Sometimes the wheel cleans up like a brand new piece of metal, and sometimes it has been exposed to corrosion and the elements and who knows what else, and you just kind of got to clean it up the best you can. And that looks pretty good. If it was real bad, then I would go dip it in the vinegar, and that should take care of it, but I think we're okay the way it is. Go ahead and get this put back together and demonstrate how it sparks once we get the mechanism reassembled. So we will start with our flywheel and the clutch spring, which go together like that. You can feel that mechanism work. Place that all the way up. You see that flush up on the top, and the hole there centered in the mechanism. Now we get our gears in place, one on top and the other one on the bottom. Had a video a while back where someone said that I did not show the hardest and most difficult part, lining up the star wheels, and they were talking about these gears. So however you talking about lining them up, that's how they go. Some of them are half gears, just depends on the mechanism. You run into all kinds of variations, but for these regular ones there's not a whole lot to it. Then when you're putting it back together with the Ronson Adonis, the top of the snuffer and the top of the plunger bar or segment bar or whatever it's called are going to be flush. So you can go ahead and line those up like that, feed it all down between the posts. Hopefully you then have that centered with your flywheel, clutch spring and all that. May have to work it back and forth a little bit to get everything in place and to get the fulcrum screw out the other side, which I'm having. There we go, slid right in there. Now we will get the fulcrum cap on. Screw that back down snugly. So you see that the mechanism is, well, we'll see how it does once we get a spring. Seems a little weak. So we'll see how the whole thing works here once we get a flint in it. I should have gone ahead and cleaned that out earlier when I cleaned everything else. So we get the flint spring screw, and also I noticed today that the 1954 lighter repair manual says that every time that you re-flint one of these, you should work it by hand a few times until you get it. It said the rough edges of the flint worn off or smoothed out. This is what I would call grooving the flint. So then once you got that grooved right, I'm going to tighten it down. And there is, so while that spring didn't look all that strong, well, maybe it does need a little work. We'll see about that. Maybe a project to take apart this segment, see how that all operates together. But there is your repair video for how to repair a vintage Ronson Adonis automatic petrol lighter that will not spark. We disassembled the upper mechanism, snuffer, all this, drilled out the flint obstruction from the bottom with the mechanism off, blew all that out, cleaned it out, replaced it, and it is sparking. But the mechanism is still a little clunky. So this fill screw is seized anyway, so keep your eyes open. Maybe sometime here in the near future we will have another video for this lighter. Until next time.